I'm Reverend J. Stewart Glover, and you are listening to Faith Talk. Today, once again, we are joined by Stephen Beard, who has contributed immensely to this podcast. Our topic today is nourishing kidney and heart health. So, Stephen, why don't you once again introduce yourself, and we'll jump right in.
All right. Thanks, Reverend Glover, for the intro. For everyone listening, hello. My name is Stephen, and I am a nutritionist as well as a wellness and holistic practitioner, diabetes prevention coach, and currently studying functional medicine as well. And as discussed, we will be discussing kidney and heart health and how it ties into metabolic health.
Amen. So where do we begin?
Great question. I would just like to start, in case some of the listeners, this is the first podcast they're tuning into, just really talking about what metabolic health is. Mm-hmm. If that's okay with you.
That sounds good.
Awesome. So just plain and simple, metabolic health, it just refers to the body's ability to efficiently process and utilize energy from our food that we eat. And by doing this, it helps regulate our blood sugar levels. It manages our lipid metabolism. And for anyone who's listening who doesn't know what lipids are, that's just our fats. And it encompasses factors such as insulin sensitivity, blood glucose levels, as well as your lipid profiles. And something to stress, when our metabolic health is compromised or downgraded, then it can lead to conditions like obesity, insulin resistance, the imbalance of our lipid profile, which is your cholesterol, LDL, HDL, and triglycerides, which in turn increases the risk of what we're discussing today, which is developing kidney and heart disease.
So there is a connection between the kidney and the heart. I really never even thought about that. I thought the kidney problem was one problem and the heart problem was another problem. But apparently there is a connection between the wellness of the kidneys or the lack thereof and the heart. So can we talk about that a little bit?
Of course. I think the easiest thing to remember when you're looking at the body from an anatomical position, or even from a physiological position, is the heart is responsible for pumping blood to everything within our body, and then returning the blood as well. So the heart will pump blood that's filled with oxygen through all of the body parts, including our kidneys. And then the kidneys, one of the kidneys' functions is to clean the blood and remove the waste products and then extra water as well. So if you have heart problems, that just means that the probability of the heart pumping the necessary oxygenated blood to the areas of the body is going to be compromised. Or vice versa, if you have kidney disease, then the heart's going to have to work harder to be able to pump oxygenated blood to get to that specific organ. And that is how hypertension or high blood pressure can be related to kidney disease as well.
You mentioned something. I know we'll probably be talking about diet a little bit later on, but as you mentioned, if we could just digress for a moment, as you mentioned that one of the kidney's functions is to clean the blood. That means that the kidneys are toxic stuff is passing through the kidneys. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So then that sounds like something I don't want to eat. You know,
Of course.
like, people eat organ meat, and kidneys being one of them. And I mean, it's just sounds like a poor choice for you to want to eat something that has the function of cleaning out the toxins from your body.
To me as well, yes, 100%.
So I've digressed, but let's return. Let's return to the relation between the kidney and heart diseases to metabolic health.
All right. Where would you like to go from here?
Well, okay, I guess we talked about the connection between the kidneys and the heart and how metabolic health influences both organs, that the lack of care for these organs can lead to conditions such as we talked about diabetes and obesity. So how about just talking about what happens when there is kidney failure?
So when there is kidney failure, I mean, that can open the door to many different types of health concerns, or I guess I will say health issues. Just because if the kidneys are not able to filter the toxins out of the body and to also cleanse the blood, then now we're looking at it from like a whole person perspective. So holistically, there can be a lot of different things that can actually go wrong. And I want to say this is kind of like where we and sometimes doctors can miss the boat when we're just really paying attention to one particular thing instead of looking at things, again, from a whole person approach. And I speak to this just because I worked with my dad last year, roughly 4.5 months, because I discovered, that he was in stage 3B, CKD, chronic kidney disease. And, even his nephrologist, which is the kidney specialist, wasn't what I say doing her job and providing the necessary knowledge or education or even the support into what needed to be done to be able to improve the functions of his kidneys.
So let's just back up 1 second. How did he become aware of his condition?
To be honest with you, me.
Mm-hmm.
He was having some health concerns. He had been in and out of the emergency room. He was having blood tests done, and all the doctors were just consistent with, your blood work looks fine. We don't really know what's going on.
Mm.
So I had my parents actually send me his blood work for the past 12 months. And then I was just literally looking at, things like his phosphorus level, his calcium level, his nitrogen level, his GFR, which is a specific test that can be done through blood work to be able to see, to measure the functioning, the functions of the kidneys itself. And he was having symptoms of swelling in his ankles and his legs. 9 times out of 10, that could possibly either be something to do with the heart, lack of blood flow, or it could be the kidneys due to lack of proper filtration of the toxins. And he was also having sharp pains and stuff, and his knee joints and his ankle joints, which obviously was inflammation. So I just kept picking away one by one and trying to connect the dots. And then that's what led me to the kidneys.
Mm-hmm. So for a layperson who's not trained in that skill of picking apart, the GFR numbers, would those be the leading indicators in their blood test that they need to pay attention to?
100%. 100%. And, I would really, really, really stress, making sure that we are loving ourselves enough that we really want to take care of ourselves enough and to get into the doctor or to a laboratory and get our blood work checked, not once a year, but biannually, meaning every 6 months. Because really the GFR is really that one specific test that you can have done. And based on the percentage of the functioning of your kidneys, you will be able to see how healthy they are or how not so healthy they are.
So now, your father, you became aware of your father's condition, and you said he was in stage 3, was it?
Stage 3B.
3B. So what did the numbers look like at that point?
So his numbers were mid 40s. So stage 3B is your GFR would be between a 30 and a 44%. So that means out of 100%, your kidneys are only functioning 30 to 44%.
And it's desirable to have it at least at like 60?
So you want to be above 60. And obviously the higher that number, the better off you are. Now, I will say, there are specific types of medications, antibiotics. I do know COVID, because COVID caused a lot of internal oxidative stress to the body, and a lot of inflammation as well. So things like that will have an effect on the kidneys, and will also affect a person's GFR percentage outcome. But those are the one-off cases that you really just want to make sure that you're working with your PCP or your medical team with, and you have created awareness around that to really make sure that once you come off of those medications, then you want to be able to immediately go back and get the blood work done again to make sure that the kidneys have bounced back to an improved number and hasn't stayed the same.
So if you go get your blood work done and you see that the GFR numbers are below 60, you need to say something to somebody.
Correct.
Right. And now you mentioned bouncing back. So what happened with your dad? His numbers were, you said, down to 40?
Yeah, his lowest was 42, and your GFR number, your GFR numbers are going to fluctuate, but we just want to make sure they're not fluctuating drastically, but they will fluctuate a little bit. And with my father, we kind of like how to build a foundation, and we really just did a lot of education just on lifestyle factors. One of them was improving food quality. So really talking about like renal medical term means kidneys.
Right.
So really just discussing kidney friendly diet types of foods, as well as the nutritional strategies, and then also the lifestyle changes, meaning exercise, sleep quality, and all those things. But after working with him, was able to get his kidneys functioning back up to a 60%, which is baseline of where it should be. At
what point in the decline of these numbers do people start considering dialysis and even kidney transplants?
So from as far as I know, stage 4, because that's considered severe. So stage 1 through stage 3 is considered mild and moderate. And studies show that as long as you are having an intervention of lifestyle changes, you are capable of being able to improve your GFR readings and your kidney function. But then we have to look at the bigger picture, because most instances, kidney failure or CKD isn't the only metabolic condition an individual has.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it could be tied to hypertension. It could be tied to high cholesterol. It could be tied to diabetes, or if you're a female, it can also be tied to PCOS.
Mm-hmm.
But following a renal diet protocol can also help improve those other metabolic conditions as well.
Mm-hmm. You said PCOS, and I said, as though I knew what you were talking about. But I don't. So what do you mean by that?
I have a hard time pronouncing this.
Okay.
So it is polycystic ovary syndrome.
Okay.
So polycystic ovary syndrome. And it's more or less just a condition of the ovaries where it produces an abnormal amount of androgens, which are male sex hormones, that are usually present in women in small amounts.
Right. All right. So let's briefly, I hear that hydration is important to the wellness of your kidneys. And why is that?
So hydration is important to the wellness of our kidneys because water is going to help flush the toxins throughout our system. But, and I have to stress, but anyone who has been diagnosed with CKD, it is really going to depend on what stage you are in, because the worse off your kidneys are, then the less stress you want to be applying to the kidneys. And I do believe it's once you get into stage 4, then you really have to tie back on dehydration because too much fluids for the kidneys makes them work a lot harder because they have to filter that through. And then also the food, the types of food is also going to shift and change compared to someone who may be in stage 1 or stage 2.
How so with the food?
Again, just really depends on the health of the kidneys. Because if you're in stage 1 or stage 2, you will be able to still eat a healthy quantity of protein. You'll still be able to eat other types of foods that has the electrolytes as well. But as the kidneys worsen, then the diet protocol will change and becomes a little bit more difficult.
So, again, for let's say we have not even been identified as one with a deteriorating kidney wellness, there are some foods that we just need to stay away from anyhow. The impact of processed foods, fast foods, processed foods, excessive salt and fats are no good for us. And I think we and our children as well, have been conditioned to somehow think that these things are okay. And actually they are detrimental to our well-being. So what types of food, and people hear this, but they don't seem to want to pay attention to it. People don't like vegetables, they don't like this, they don't like that. But what are some of the good things we can be eating? Again, adding some good things into our diet instead of just trying to fast, completely. What are some of the things we can add into our diet to improve our wellness? And I'm talking about before we even get into or identified as having kidney problems.
100%. I'm all about prevention, preventative care. So healthy fats. So that would be things like avocado, healthy oils, fatty fish. So sticking to, something a fish that everyone knows, salmon. Definitely adding in our fruits, but we want to make sure that we stay on the low glycemic level of fruits. So that's why we, in the nutrition world, we always stress berries. So that would be your strawberries, your raspberries, your blueberries, your blackberries, your nuts and seeds. If you're not allergic to nuts, or you don't have something like diverticulitis or losis, then you can eat your nuts and seeds, your beans and legumes. And honestly, the list remains pretty much the same as we have discussed with every single metabolic condition so far in this podcast series. So for the listeners, I just want to really stress, not saying you have to go vegetarian, but increasing a plant-based lifestyle more or less is going to help heal the body.
Let me say this, Stephen. I recently saw on Facebook one person who is promoting his all fruit diet. And, he shows pictures of himself with large amounts of fruits that he consumes every day. And, I reached out and said, hey, what's the possibility of someone's sugar levels being raised by eating all of this fruit and nothing else? And he claimed that that his sugar levels and kidney health, everything is fine. And I think that I think you mentioned in one of our prior episodes that people's bodies react differently. And so it's kind of unfair for him to promote a fruit-only diet, not knowing how other people's bodies will react to that abundance of sugar that's found in fruits.
100%. And this goes back to one of the reasons why I don't like to say healthy foods versus non-healthy foods, or good foods versus bad foods, because a food could be good for one person and could be bad for another person just based on, their specific health condition. And I would say for our listeners, I would feel safe saying if someone has heart disease, if someone listening has CKD and other metabolic conditions, then I can pretty much say they are more sedentary and not as active. They're probably not exercising. They're probably not doing those types of things that, from a physiological perspective, allows the body to metabolize sugar and food differently. So I would not suggest a fruit diet for those individuals. I would say definitely stick to low glycemic types of fruits, and then non-starchy vegetables. Again, to make sure that you're increasing your insulin sensitivity, decreasing your insulin resistance, which again will help if you do have other metabolic concerns like hypertension, high triglycerides or cholesterol, or high blood sugar.
So, when we go out shopping for our food, I think we need to be a little bit more disciplined about what it is that we buy. And try to integrate some sort of planning into our purchases, and rather than just putting it on the back burner of our mind and saying, well, I ate an orange today and that was healthy. So, I read something that said, we need to be more disciplined about our meal planning, actually thinking about what it is that we're going to make and develop a discipline towards that, as opposed to just eating everything and anything and every once in a while throwing a fruit or vegetable on our plate.
That is key. And some helpful how I work with my clients, with meal planning strategies, I kind of like label it, meal planning strategies to promote nutrient-rich, balanced eating. So that way it's not talking about a specific type of food. So, it's just making sure that you're taking time out of your busy schedule, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and literally just sitting down and trying to plan out, what it is that you're going to buy at the supermarket that aligns with what you should be eating and what you need to be eating to improve your current health conditions. And that doesn't mean that you need to be in the kitchen meal prepping, your meals for 2 or 3 days or anything like that. But just planning. And I know a lot of people have difficulty with that because they don't even know where to start. They're not even aware of the types of foods that they should be buying.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say step one would be understanding what you should be eating versus what you should not be eating to improve your kidney function or your overall metabolic health. And then once you know those, I always say choose a carbohydrate, a plant-based carbohydrate that's going to be loaded in dietary fiber. You're going to want to choose a lean protein, and then half of your plate should be filled with vegetables. So I always say choose 2 to 3 vegetables from the color of the rainbow, and start there and building a plate. And then that's kind of like how your supermarket shopping list should be based on.
Let me ask you this. I recently discovered in the supermarket purple potatoes and red sweet potatoes. Now, generally you hear that potatoes are bad for you, but is there any value to those potatoes that are purple and sweet potatoes that are a red color?
So, rule of thumb is the darker the fruit or the darker the vegetable, the richer it's going to be in antioxidants.
Mm-hmm.
Which for me is like a main concern, antioxidants and anti-inflammatory properties, because those are the defense mechanisms internally for our body to help fight the oxidative stress, which oxidative stress does lead to inflammation, which is one of the reasons why we stress. Make sure you're eating at least your 5 servings of vegetables and fruits on a daily basis. But as far as the nutritional, I guess the depth of the nutritional value from one potato to the next, they're really consistent across the board. Give or take a couple, maybe a little bit more calcium in one potato than the next, or maybe a little bit more potassium in one potato than the next. But you're really going to get the benefit when you eat the skin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, Stephen, I want to thank you again for being with us today. I think that people are encouraged. I know I've been encouraged through this podcast. I've been shying away from eating meat every day. I just, as we talked about earlier, I experimented and actually enjoyed a black rice instead of the white rice. And, I'm not missing the meat. I must tell you that I was in Harlem, USA the other day and passed by a very well-known, famous chicken place. and the struggle, let's put it this way, I lost. and I put it on Facebook and somebody said to me, enjoy yourself, don't kill yourself, but I've been encouraged by our conversations, and I'm looking forward to a more disciplined approach to taking care of myself. So do you have any closing thoughts?
My closing thoughts for the listeners, again, I just can't stress enough. Get to the doctor, your healthcare team, a laboratory, and please get your blood work done at least once a year. I encourage twice a year. I'm still dumbfounded by all the conversations I just have with people in general, and they haven't even had their blood work done in a couple years. So those are the types of people that could be walking around being pre-diabetic or even type 2 diabetic and not even knowing it. High triglycerides or cholesterol, any type of metabolic condition that can lead to worsened health conditions down the road. So awareness and self-awareness is key in preventative health, as well as making the necessary lifestyle changes to improve any metabolic or health condition that we currently have.
Amen. Well, Stephen, thanks a lot. I want to remind the listening audience that I don't know how they're listening to this, but these episodes are available on Apple. They're available on iHeartRadio, on Spotify, on Amazon, on YouTube. So we encourage you to share with your friends. If you care about your friends and their wellness, they can receive some beneficial information from these episodes. Again, Stephen, thank you for coming on. You're listening to Faith Talk. I'm Reverend J. Stewart Glover. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.